Hi, good morning, good afternoon, everybody. Tuning in today live into the Tech for Good Talks. Today, we're looking into a topic which is really making headlines and changes the way entrepreneurs and especially tech entrepreneurs think about how they're running and growing their business, which is storytelling and the role of AI in storytelling. I'm Mara Puat, your host for today. And I'm just going to start by saying that, we're seeing how storytelling is making a huge entrance from the B2C marketing stage, right, into the B2B world. And so many B2B brands, be it insurance, be it banking, and more, are tapping into storytelling. But what happens in technology? Technology, and especially service providers, right, digital software development agencies, work in a very, very crowded market. You could even say homogeneous market because their service offering is sometimes very similar and difficult to decipher for the customer what makes one brand different from the other. So we asked ourselves the question at Tech to the Rescue: how do brands, and especially tech brands, use storytelling to grow their business? We found three professionals that I really admire and that we worked with at Tech to the Rescue for years already, coming from two different actually parts of the storytelling game, so to say. On one hand, we have Morgan joining us today from the EdMind agency. She's going to also tell us a couple of words about herself. Morgan is passionate about storytelling. She's actually a story creator and strategist working for EdMind. And on the other side, we have two tech entrepreneurs who are building their and growing their businesses and working with all kinds of clients from all kinds of sectors, but also working with nonprofits on projects that I know will be inspiring, and we will be talking about them today. I'm super happy to have Morgan, Suyash, and Mosin with me today. So, guys, take this moment to introduce yourselves and tell us about your background before we jump into the topic. For everybody out there, just for you to know, there is a Q&A chat, and we're happy to have your questions. We're going to have a Q&A session at the very end, and we're looking forward to that. But guys, the floor is yours. Morgan, maybe you can start.
Okay. My name is Morgan Nicholas Carpiel, and I'm the Innovation and Content Strategy Advisor at Mind Branding and Communications. We're the largest creative branding agency in the CEE, and we have a lot of. We're honored to have a lot of awards for our creative projects, and we've really prioritized AI learning and sort of AI efficiencies, but also balancing that with human-centered storytelling. So that's a big, passion point for us.
Thanks so much. Suyash, go next.
Yes, thank you for having me. My name is Suyash Dikshit. I'm from Metapic. Uh, Originally, I also have masters in science in artificial intelligence and machine learning. So I'm a developer by heart also, apart from running the business. So Metapic is an end-to-end solution provider. We are a team of around 350 developers and designers from all across the globe. And we are so happy to join this.
Thank you so much for being with us, Suyash. Mosin.
It's a little hard to go after Suyash with such an impressive resume. My name is Mohsen, everyone. I represent Cloud Primero. So I have a finance background. I studied finance at university, but I never pursued that as a career. By some sheer stroke of luck, ended up in technology startups, and that's where my passion for technology grew. And I sort of was mentored by these people who had this belief that technology is a great enabler and can do economic turnarounds for nations and countries, and that's where my passion lies, by using technology to help people. About Cloud Primero, we are a technology consulting and strategy consulting company. We're headquartered out of Rotterdam, but it's very safe to say that we now are a global company. Thanks to the backing of a group, we've been able to sort of start small companies all over the world and acquire a few as well. And essentially, we help governments, enterprise customers, with their technology needs, and helping them grow their businesses and become more efficient. And this year, in April, it will almost be 4 years since we've first partnered with Tech to the Rescue. It's been a phenomenal journey, and we hope to continue to work with them in this partnership and keep on making impact. with the kind of work and the kind of opportunities they're able to scout for us. And a privilege to be here. Thank you so much.
Thanks so much, Mohsin. So this is going to be a kind of conversation where two marketing professionals talk to an AI ML engineer and with a startup entrepreneur and leader of an international tech company about storytelling. This is going to be fun, I have to say. Please let us know in the chat about where's the sectors that you guys work in, or what is the area you work in, because that would also give us an idea who's there listening to us live. And Morgan, let's just start with a working definition, because storytelling might sound like something you want to do to your kids in the evening. There's a story hour, right? And this is, for so many people out there, like it's still something that is a childish thing. How did this become from a family routine into something that we all talk about as professionals as a marketing strategy and even brand growth strategy? How do we understand storytelling as growth and even brand managers?
I think it's it's centered on understanding. Creating a story is about connecting with your audience, with your customers, and letting them know what your values are, along with letting them know what your purpose, what your mission is, how they can approach that, what your story is, what your history is, what they are really investing in when they are investing in you or communicating with you or buying your products or engaging with the content that you put out there. Like, sort of, what is the point that they understand about you? So you're trying to make yourself approachable. You're trying to make yourself easy to understand, have some clarity, but also some purpose, because people are often drawn to purpose. We have this world right now. It's not getting any easier. I think we can see that from the news. Yeah. So when you are approaching people, it's not good enough anymore to just say, I am selling you this. This is just what I do. And that's it. I'm better than this other company. You do have to say why. And there is the human-centered part of that. There's the value-centered part of that, but there's also the business part of that. How am I going to make what you do better? How am I going to, especially in our industry, which is B2B, how are we going to help you to increase engagement, to have people be interested in your story, to have people rooting for your company or your brand? How are we going to help them? What is the impact we're going to have with their business? Does that answer your question?
It definitely answers my question and puts it into this kind of framework that, as an entrepreneur, I could work with. Are my values visible? Is the story consistent of what my brand is, differentiated, different than others? But also, am I able to translate my value proposition, my service, my portfolio to my clients? This is basically how I interpret what you're saying, and I could use it as a framework. Another question is, Morgan, so who's a storyteller, right? Who's the owner and the teller of the story in B2B in this case?
The storyteller is a person who has empathy for others, right? But also understands this business part of it, right? At the end of the day, there's a lot of things that have to make sense when you're dealing with somebody else, when you're entering into partnerships, when you're investing in somebody else's skill or talent. I guess it's more, I don't know. Let me ask someone else here. What do you think, Mohsin?
Yeah, so I'd like to add what about Mara's question about who the storyteller is or who owns it. It's funny because just last night we were on this town hall meeting for one of our U.S. entities. It was like an annual gathering to sort of set the pace for 2025. It was scheduled a little late. And one of the points our group CEO Ali mentioned that everyone in the company as of right now should be selling because everyone in the company at different junctures touches the client at different levels. And and before we can sort of tell our story outward, like publicly in through different marketing mediums and channels, I think all of us internally need to be aligned as to what we stand for, how we can sort of help the client, and that should be consistent with every touch point. So I feel right now it's essential, and for a company of our size, because we're not very big and we're not very small, so we're just in that at that very interesting juncture where we could become maybe a multi-billion dollar enterprise in the next 5 to 10 years. So we're really setting the stage for that. And at that point, we feel that everyone in the company needs to be aligned and needs to be telling the same story whenever they get that opportunity to touch with have a touch point with a client at different levels, at different points in the value chain. So I feel before we can do this activity outwardly, where we're sort of reaching out to potential customers, I think internally it's very important to be aligned as to who we stand for, what we do, how we do, and I think more importantly why we're doing what we're doing. So I think that's very important for me. So I think, and even amongst us colleagues, the why can be different. Maybe the reason why I get out of bed in the morning every day and come to Cloud Primero might be different from my colleague, sitting right across the floor. But at the end of the day, fundamentally, the story needs to align. The ethos needs to be same. And I think customer centricity, actually sort of revolves around. The story should revolve around customer centricity. At least that's what I feel.
Sounds great. Suyash, tell us how it is when you work in a 350 people company. How does that story and that why kind of transcend, board meeting rooms and to get to everybody, every developer in your team?
That's a very interesting question. Here at Metapic, we believe that storytelling humanizes your brand, right? Our customers, whatever the customers are, they don't buy just the products; they buy your stories also, right? It is very easy to throw specs at your customer that hey, we have fine-tuned your hyperparameters up to this scale, but they don't care about that much. What they care about is how your product is going to add value to their system, right? Uh, so, of course, customers remember stories more than the specs, right? And we have to make sure, especially in the B2B sectors, that our customers seek stories that align with their vision and values, right? So as Moshin said, before even making an outward journey, we have to make an inward journey, right? We have to make sure that all our team members, they are perfectly aligned of what we are trying to sell, right? And how it can add value to the customer, right? So yeah, that is one thing that I believe is very important.
I
And
think you also touch
and
upon something really was sorry for interrupting, but interesting about how you have to have that curiosity and empathy towards who you're telling the story to, right? Because you have to be super aware of their needs, but don't go into this kind of like very dry benefits type of communication because they might not hit the mark, right? They might be getting very similar offers from so many companies out there, yeah. And then they start looking at offers and what actually stays with them and what can help your offer stand out is how you understand their needs and how you are able to even like formulate and use those stories and those insights and flip them into an offer. But
yeah,
go ahead, Suyash, you were
you
just.
know what they say, right? A well-crafted story makes even complex tech solution relatable and easy to understand, right? So even though your customer is like a big company, the person that you are talking to might be more interested in those easier words, in how you're representing your product, right? They might not be interested in how you're going to solve it, but they might be more interested in what you're going to solve.
Okay, sounds great. Tell me about internal storytelling. Now, I'm not talking about the customers. I'm talking about really your teams and your developers. How do you keep them, inspired, motivated, and actually, what is the glue that sticks teams together? If you're looking at values and storytelling
So
from a leadership perspective, maybe.
So I believe that the storytelling is paramount here. And the one story that I always tell to my team is that if a kid of 3 year old like my son can use an iPad, that may not necessarily mean that the son is very intellectual, but that definitely means that developers have put a lot of efforts to make sure that even a 3 year old can use an iPad, right?
Right.
So even though your user right now is a 3 year old kid, right? But you have to make sure that they understand your product, what you're selling, right? So you have to make things so simple for your customers or for your user base, and you have to work very hard to make sure that you uphold that simplicity, right? And all the tech behind and all the complexities must work in the background for your product.
Mm.
I actually have a question. How for the panel, how is it that one of the challenges is in a very, very noisy world, right? How is it that you bring a focus to your message? Like, what are your maybe go-to strategies of how you can stand out, how you make your story stand out?
So, if I may, Morgan, I think that's a very interesting question, and to I think Mara's earlier statement, I just want to connect it to that. That in our business, what we do or what Sayush does, Suyash does. It's very hard to differentiate because it's being more and more commoditized now. So it's hard to differentiate yourself only if you're investing in building intellectual property, which not a lot of firms our size or service organizations do. So it's really hard to differentiate. And that recalls and that makes me recall this moment, which was almost 8-10 years ago when Ali was starting this business, our group CEO, and he was speaking to his first ever potential business partner in the US. And he had a certain set of requirements. By the way, this business partner later on then merged the business with Ali's, and then they sort of became business partners. But in as a client, or at least as a prospect, they had all these requirements, and Ali was maybe 10 or 20th in line to sort of come and pitch to him. And he had these tons of questions, and obviously Ali had answers to that. But one thing Ali said, and that really made him, this switch that went off in the prospect's mind, was that Ali said that I can tell you 100 things about me, 100 good things about me, but at the end of the day, it's a services business. It's a people dependent business, and things will go wrong. And when they do, we will be there, right there, standing by your side 24/7, trying to come up with a solution, trying to fix them, making sure that we deliver on our promise. So I think this sense of openness and honesty, sort of paved the way in every interaction, in every engagement, both internally and externally. So I think, we have been in situations where the other side of the table is one of the big fours, or a giant company with a very fancy presentation, and in all nice suits, and fancy ties. But then we're here on this side of the table, just trying to speak some brutal realities. So I think that's really helped us differentiate and cut through the noise. And once you're able to do that with one client, that client becomes your biggest advocate and biggest storyteller, that, hey, I know these bunch of people in Rotterdam. They're doing some great stuff, and I think you should go and work with them as well. And that's where we've been able to substantially grow our business through referrals, and I think that's very, very important. So I think, to your question, how do you differentiate yourself? How do you cut through the noise? I think the starting point is just being very open, brutally honest, and just laying all your cards on the table and say, hey, this is what I can do, this is what I cannot do, and this is what I'm willing to learn, and go the distance with you. Would you be my partner? And I think that's really worked for us in a lot of ways, and I think it's a testament to where we stand right now as a company.
So brutal honesty is is the lead, that we know that things are going to go wrong, things happen, but then also we're here for you, right? So
Absolutely.
this is
Absolutely.
I guess that's an interesting story also, because more and more, we have people listening to us who don't want to hear that things are never going to go wrong. They don't want to hear that glossy story of, oh, everything is perfect, everything is fine, and we're living in a great world where there's so much that's happening that's good, and we live in a great world where, I mean, Tech to the Rescue is part of that. Yes, I mean, connecting tech companies with great causes, doing good in the world, so we see it there. But the people that we're talking to, they do live in a reality that has these other elements they have to worry about. So speaking directly to that is an instant way to build trust, right? Because when you tell them that things are aligned with the things that they sort of worry about in a storytelling way, that's how you gain trust. Instantly, you have that connection.
Right. I can also tell you a story, Morgan. So Tech to the Rescue right now is a big community of more than 1,500 tech companies, all doing very similar services. Literally, they do, their software development for, all the industries out there, hiring very similar, profile of people. So competing with each other, you could say, right? We're telling them, you can engage in Tech for Good. We're going to match you with a nonprofit company, with a nonprofit organization to work for a pro bono project that can not only help that nonprofit organization grow their impact, but also do magic for your company. And what's the magic for the company, right? What's the magic for the tech company on the other side? So we just interviewed and surveyed our community and asked them, why do you engage in pro bono tech projects? More than a half of the tech companies that answered to our survey told us that they do it for brand differentiation, because on one hand, their teams want to work on something that really makes a difference, right? On a project that is not just another e-commerce platform or another, fintech solution. They want to know that, for example, fintech solution lands into the hands of communities that can, start using it tomorrow and start using it potentially for free because it's run by an NGO. Another reason why they do that is that they say that in teams, very often you have disengagement or, developers who just miss that kind of really reason to wake up in the morning, like Mohsin said. And working on an impactful project when you know that on the other side of this project, you have an impact organization, changes the chemistry in the team. The developers start working differently with each other. They learn about an important cause, whether it's, education, healthcare, prenatal care if you want. All these things are some kind of added values into a project. And then these stories actually very often transcend that kind of business work, because very often developers start either engaging personally with a nonprofit or start telling their friends and their families about those projects. And there's this really, really nice spillover effect from work into how they see the world, then how they actually even are in touch with those burning problems, right, that we see on the news. They start developing a personal relationship, and they start telling stories themselves about why all these causes matter and where in the world they're making an impact. So this is another story which is very, very I would say it shows a lot in Tech to the Rescue that tech companies do these projects for, on one hand it's the to portfolio reasons, right? To build their brand, to have a good story to tell in commercial settings, but also to motivate and put their developers into shoes which they would not have been otherwise. Yeah, this really makes a great difference.
I mean, to add to what Mara has just said, we at Metafic, we are a very experiment company, right? So we like to try new tools. We like to try new methodologies of how we create software, right? Generally, big enterprises, they are a bit reluctant or to adopt this new technologies, right? With the help of projects from Tech to the Rescue, we get a chance to experiment these new tech, right? So it automatically puts these projects at the frontier of like what is there out there in the market also, right? And our developers also get chance to experiment with the new tech, of course.
Yes, we also had a great experience there, although it wasn't so much in that technical sphere, but just in the creative sphere. We have a lot of creative people who love working with companies that do good. It's that's always really a good feel good story and a excellent start to a creative partnership when you know that that impact is out there for
Mm,
which is one of the things that our company really believes in. As
mm.
just going out there and helping people to help other people. It's amazing.
Yeah, I'm so happy that you guys have experienced this firsthand. But maybe you want to tell us also the inception story. So, Cloud Meadow, you've been doing these pro bono projects for nonprofits via Tech to the Rescue for more than 3 years now. And I've just looked into your, portfolio. It's really impressive. I'm looking at one of the first sexual education app in Latin America was developed by your company, Pro Bono, in partnership with a local nonprofit, the Lily Project. Then you also worked with the White Helmets in Syria to develop an app in
Mm.
which any civilian can actually report an emergency and reduce the time for white helmets to react. You've also worked with refugees in Netherlands, in the country of your headquarters, right? Creating a system connecting refugees with consultants that can help them find asylum very quickly. And the list can go on. So my question is, like, what's the story and what was your, the inception story into going into these kind of projects? Because there's not too many tech companies out there doing pro bono with nonprofits, and it's really in our mission right now to to grow this movement. What's your story?
So this was the year 2021, and the world was coming out of the pandemic. There was a demand for IT services, and the business was growing. We were doing well, and it was only but natural to sort of give back to the community and do something good. And like Mara, you mentioned when you surveyed all these tech company leaders, more often than not, they said that it was a branding exercise. You want to put yourself out there,
Yeah.
position yourself as a company which has a soul, which has a conscience. So we had similar reasons. But once we took on the Lily project, which was then rebranded, I mean, the application is rebranded as Shava.
Yeah.
What we realized that doing projects of this nature, which makes impact, also helps us push boundaries of our team and sort of elevates their skills. So I'll tell you what I mean. So in the Lily project's case, it was a pretty straightforward application that, okay, these are the requirements. This one needs to be built. We'll design it, we'll build it, we'll deploy it. Pretty run of the mill stuff. However, this was a topic which was discussing a very taboo topic in that region, and even in some parts of the world, it's still very taboo to talk about women's sexual
Definitely.
health and education. So and with men in the room, we can't even relate to that. So you need to then and we were very fortunate to actually just at that point in time had some phenomenal women in our team, which sort of just very organically became part of the project. um, and and really got them thinking that, okay, how do we communicate these very sensitive topics, very taboo topics to young women in a part of the world where access to information and awareness is so scarce, and how do we make it palatable for them? How do we make it engaging for them? How do we make it that it actually helps them and help them lead healthier lives? So it sort of let our technical team put on a consultant's hat and approach the problem from a different angle.
Mm.
um, and similar cases with the white helmets, where this was an application which is still under development. We've sort of deployed it, but it's still test in the testing phases, so we still have a long way to go. And we feel Ahmed and his colleagues as long-term partners. We love them. It's fantastic working with them. And the impact that they're going to create with this is just phenomenal, because at the end of the day, this application will be saving lives, and responding to different situations, emergency situations in a conflict zone. And now when we started building it, again, pretty straightforward. But you need to put in a map there. There are some integrations for sending out an SMS or a call and stuff, pretty basic stuff. But when we started actually building it and started to grapple with the realities of that geography, there were a lot of things that were just because of the regulatory reason in that region for security reasons were just blocked, and there was no path through. So our engineers had to build some stuff that was just solely built for that application, or find a way around it, and and try to come up with creative solutions to be able to make that application work on again, scarcely available data connectivity. A lot of major applications that just don't work there. um, and coming up with novel solutions. So in retrospect, partnering with Tech to the Rescue was one of the best decisions that we took as a company, to basically enable our teams and our engineers really push the boundaries, and be able to acquire these certain skills, these through putting themselves in these situations where in usual circumstances, or with the usual clients, they would never have. So I think it's phenomenal that we took the decision, and I think the team at Tech to the Rescue is doing a phenomenal job in being able to do this outreach and scout these opportunities, and pinpoint these organizations and these people who are actually in need of help with their technology. And
Mm,
it's been a very, very fulfilling journey thus
mm.
far, and we hope that it will be in the future as well.
Thanks so much, Mosen. And I really hope that these stories also inspire and keep that team motivated, like you say, to also try different hats and creating those internal stories that keep teams engaged for in all projects of their portfolio. Let me just move
Absolutely.
right now to Suyash, because I'm looking at your portfolio and it's also very, very impressive. The pro bono projects that you guys have done, investing up to $50,000 per pro bono projects, in literally without charging that nonprofit for the solutions, in projects like in Singapore, your air quality projects, right, turning data into visualizations that can inform the population about air quality crises, or looking at Terre des Hommes, an organization that works with young mothers and prenatal care, creating an app which can work with all kinds of communities where there's very low connectivity, or working with agricultural innovation with the NGO called Equutir. And this NGO even appeared on TED because their work that they're doing in India is fantastic, right? And creating that digital marketplace for farmers to be able to tap into so many markets. Suyash, my question to you is, how do you use those inspiring stories and those inspiring pro bono projects to build your brand? Do you speak about them to investors? Do you speak about them to clients? Do you speak about it to your team? How do you make the most out of these fantastic pro bono collaborations?
Let's take a very good example here of something called as Smart Air Bangladesh. It's a project that we took over from Right to the Rescue. Uh, the primary challenge that they were facing, like in the Dhaka, the capital city of Bangladesh, there's a lot of air pollution, right? Initially, the project was just to show the current air quality index out there in the public, but through the substantial discussions what we had with the project team, the final conclusion was that we need to create a community out of this, right? When they should look at the air quality in public, right? Everyone can scan a QR code and like chat with an AI bot, right? And eventually they can join this community, right? And slowly, the idea is to grow the community. We can take that impact, right? It is not just delivering the project, but what impact that project is like creating. We can take that actual impact and then we can take it to the client, right? That even though if we have done this entire project on the pro bono basis, but we have created a substantial impact out there in the community, that the people, like the local people from Dhaka, actually wants to join this particular cause, right? And want to help this project grow. In the end, this entire project will help the local government and the local people to drive more awareness and find out more and more solutions on how to reduce this air pollution, right? So the whole goal is not just to ship out the project, but to create an impact from it. And we can take that impact, convert it to the numbers, and show those the actual numbers as a part of a story to our investor and to our internal employees. For example, when we shipped out Ecotir, right, we did something for the local farmers, right? India is a very agriculture-driven country, right? I mean, most of us also come from the agriculture background, right? So
Right.
doing something for your local community and add tech to it, of course, create a huge impact here, right? And we can convert that to a better story and present it to our internal employees and to investors also, right? And that's how we have been doing it.
That sounds great. And I'm so inspired and grateful for all the work that you guys have done at Club Primero and Metafic, two organizations that have been with us with years already. And I hope Morgan, you too. Because I mean, these stories are just absolutely amazing. And now let me just surprise everybody because I think I also see a question in the chat regarding how AI is shaping the storytelling and even like the narrative today. So I'm not going to ask the AI question to our tech guys on this panel. I'm not going to ask Mohsin and Suyash, which would be probably a natural expected course of action. But my question is actually to Morgan. How can AI, how is AI even changing the storytelling game? In terms of finding stories, producing stories, distributing stories? Is it changing? Does it have an effect? And I think this is something that Mohsin and Suyash should be super interested in because the number of stories and the impact, the reach of the stories that you just shared to us in this in the last minutes are just is worth making just bigger and wider. So Morgan, tell us, how is AI changing the storytelling game?
Well, certainly it can power some efficiencies. It can help you to create things like mood boards and for videos, and it can help you to, uh, to a certain extent, write, these drafts for stories you might want to tell. But the challenge is always how to connect with your audience and to identify areas where AI can improve improve that reach, improve that connection through the ability that it has to make things more vivid, or the ability that it has to help you to expand your storytelling capabilities into different media, different channels, things like that. So it can make your stories much more powerful in that way. But there's also the balance of how and where people want to see it. How effective is it in actually creating those connections? There are certain areas where you may not want to use it because, for instance, if you're showing something, an actual person, and that person doesn't seem very convincing, then you're losing people, right? So storytelling with AI is a balance. It can certainly help efficiency. It can help you to explore different areas, different ways of telling stories. It can also, like I said, extend your reach, the capability you have to tell stories. But there always has to be that protection of that human element to it, the human authorship, the human emotion that has to go into it. A lot of our creatives have been playing with AI. They even built their own workflows using more complex systems like Comfy UI. And one of the things that you see when you work with these tools all the time, or certain teams with them with them all the time, is that it really does, the output that you get out of them is really dependent on how the person using those tools thinks, and the discipline that has gone into the way that they think about telling stories, the knowledge they have about their audience, and in our case, our clients' audience. Um, so who you're telling the story for and what they want to see, but also keeping that human connection. Does that make sense?
It does make sense. You were just telling about your creatives who started working with AI. Do you see success stories, or is everything in the kind of, not good enough kind of standard right now?
We see a lot of success stories. Obviously, as a B2B, we don't go around sharing specific projects. So, but I can tell you that behind the scenes, they've been able to do amazing things. I mean, I can tell you that some of it's focused on hyperlocation and just being able to tell different stories in different regions to make them very relevant very quickly using, using methods that we build with multiple tools, right? So and specific workflows that use different AI tools. So they've really been producing a lot of stuff that we're very proud of, and
That's
hopefully you'll be able to see more of it.
Yeah, we definitely want to see more of it, and I'm going to also be reading your blog to see more of those success stories. Well, how we use AI Tech to the Rescue to in storytelling is first of all for identifying stories. You know, we work all over the globe. We work in more than 60 countries, matching tech companies with nonprofits. And one of our challenge was actually to be able to identify and react really quickly when an impact project was complete. So right now we have, for example, automations that go from our CRM straight into our, let's say, creatives team, telling us that project can be already explored, and we can start digging and exploring that story. But we don't have a lot of experience in actually AI generated content for storytelling. For that, we have seen that writing your own story, doing your own research, and telling that story with a very, very human hand still works best for us. And we've even had some flops in that aspect, actually, now that I think about it. We recently wanted to create a short video. The task was to create a 30 seconds video on an impact project that happened in Africa. It was also a farmer's project. So we just tried, playing with one of those AI Gen AI video tools. And once we had the video, it looked actually pretty nice. So we sent it to the organization to ask for their opinion. Is this video kind of representing you in a good way? Does this tell the right story, right? Because we did the interview, we knew what was the story that was supposed to be told. We wrote the script. We only asked AI to generate that video for us. Well, the reaction of the nonprofit was, "Oh my God, this is not us, like this has nothing. This is not how our fields look like. This is not how that flooding river looks like, and this is definitely not the facial expression of a farmer working there." Yeah, so we were like, "Okay, our experiment was a huge learning. We have to be very careful with using video generating tools for our impact stories, because the risk of misrepresentation, actually telling the wrong story, is higher than any benefits of the time that we obviously saved and the money that we saved with producing that story." So that example was definitely a precautionary tale for us to work a lot with the local organization that are heroes of the story, to make sure that we're telling the right story to the right people, right?
Yeah.
Maybe you guys have experience with this.
I just want to jump in here one more time, because this is an area that it is actually very exciting to me. And you're absolutely right. There's a lot of risk involved. There's a lot of credibility loss that happens if you put out the wrong type of imagery, if you put out the wrong type of video. People don't understand it. We've seen that from big brands recently, Coca-Cola and their Christmas, their AI generated Christmas. And people get very angry, especially since there's also this sort of idea, if you are using these things to design, and these are tools that have taken from everyone, it better be good. It better be something we haven't seen before. It better have that artistic edge that you're looking for. And if you can see right now on LinkedIn, you can see some film competitions where real filmmakers who have been doing film their entire life are working with AI tools, and you can just see the difference. They're creating really artistic, next level type of videos and productions, and the strength of the tools, not just AI, but also the game engine cinematics and the things that we're getting into now, the more immersive technologies that we'll be able to tell stories in. It's just, you can tell the difference between somebody who has thought this way, as I said earlier, who has an artistic vision, who has the artistic passion when they are using those tools. It's a completely different story than the rest of us. Like I work mostly in storytelling, so if I get on the AI, I have exactly the same experience as you. I create some images, I try and make the mouth move on the frog, and it looks awful. It looks awful. It's not wouldn't convince anybody.
Mhm.
So I'm very glad that we have these teams, and I really recommend going onto LinkedIn, seeing these people who are doing these just amazing things with this, and you can tell the artistry is there, and that's where you get the human connection from, because you can tell that this is a created by a human for humans, you know.
Mhm. Right. And I just remembered one more example where we played with AI, Gen AI, for creating more inspirational content. So we run a marketplace. It's a place where any tech company out there can find impact projects coming from nonprofits, and any tech company, without even calling or emailing Tech to the Rescue, can just pick a project, and it's sort of a really an impact projects marketplace. We realized that when we only gave a title to every impact project in words, the traction and the conversion from a user viewing that project to selecting that project was pretty low. So we said, okay, we need imagery for all these impact projects. People have to imagine and see that, right? So our first guess was, let's go into Gen AI, right? And generate very unique imagery for every impact project, and make it not like look like reality, make it obvious that this is AI generated, but each project will now have a hero photo. We saw an amazing conversion growth, absolutely, from just having text titles to having this image plus text titles. However, when we went and used real photos, that's when the real conversion happened, because the user of that marketplace, so, the maybe the CSR manager or the co-founder of a tech company or a founder of a tech company sees that real setting. Maybe it's not the picture perfect, hero photo that you wanted, but it shows real people in a real setting. This is when the conversion went even higher. So right now we're saying goodbye to AI imagery and asking nonprofits to send us, photos from the field and from the team, because people want to work with people. And this is, was our learning. I want to ask the tech entrepreneurs on this call, because you guys work with AI generated tools all the time. I don't even know, do you have experience with working with AI to generate assets that tell your brand and help your brand stand out? And how did they go?
Suyash, do you want to take this one first?
Sure, sure. So, see, for us, AI is all about personalization that we can ship on scale, right? So, we recently worked with a research publication company. They have published more than 10,000 research papers, and research is all about text and like presenting what you have done in a very human readable way possible, right? And they have this newsletter that ship out every week, right? So initially what we proposed, that we can convert your every single newsletter for your every single reader the way they want, right? We can personalize this entire newsletter that you are sending it to them the way they like to read, right?
Mhm.
Initially, the response was not that good, right? It failed miserably, right? One of the reasons we found that the newsletter wanted to say something else, but what Gen AI did was it actually modified whatever the research was actually been done, right? So we had to trim the Gen AI version down a bit, right? And then we had to recalibrate, and we had to fine tune each and everything, right? But ultimately, the end product that we shipped actually, fortunately, did work very well, right? Their newsletters got great appreciation, right? So what did we learn from this entire thing? That just because Gen AI is there doesn't mean that it will solve all your problems. You have to be smart enough to make sure that you need to find an authenticity in what story that you are telling, right? You have to find that balanced sweet spot between your authenticity and AI driven automation in the end.
Yeah, definitely. Thanks for sharing that story, Suyash.
Suyash, that's a very interesting story where I think human biases can sort of creep in to what AI is throwing as an output. As far as I'm concerned personally, and to a certain degree, I can speak on the company's behalf as well. Right now, we're taking Gen AI as with a pinch of salt, and sort of using it to augment our work experience. to a degree where we are increasing our AQ, our action quotient, our ability to get things done, sort of increasing that. And it's been really been helpful that way. To sort of wholly and solely rely on it, like, in Mara's case, where you guys were trying to generate that hero image, and, none of it really resonated with the target audience because it just couldn't, they couldn't relate to it because, but I feel that we're still maybe even a few months or maybe a year or two away from actually relying on Gen AI to sort of wholly solely, do things end to end. And we're watching this space very, very carefully because every day there's a new startup with a new product, or even the big incumbents coming up with a new announcement with new product expansions and new offerings. So I think we as entrepreneurs really need to look at this space vigilantly and see what comes our way and what we can quickly adapt, use, and bring about efficiencies in the way we do work. But for now, as far as Cloud Primero is concerned, our consultants, our engineers are using it to augment the way they work and increase their productivity and their output. But from a very creative standpoint, to rely on it, we're taking things slow. We're building internal knowledge bases to help our guys churn out proposals quickly, respond to client queries in an efficient manner. And it's been really helpful, and it's been phenomenal. There have been phenomenal productivity gains. But from a creative angle, I think that's something that we haven't wholly solely explored, and I still feel that we're a few. What happened a few weeks ago, or I think maybe just last week with DeepSeek, I think that just blew everyone out of the park. So we just don't know what's around the corner with Gen AI and AI. So it's a wait and watch game, but I think as entrepreneurs, as business professionals, we really need to be vigilant and see what comes our way.
Yeah, I agree with that. I also believe we're on a brink of of a big revolution here, in which tools will start stop disappointing us. And there's already tools that do a really good job. I have to looking at the portfolio that we're using at Tech to the Rescue. Claude AI has a fantastic hand for writing short form text, and we're using that even like to support or to kind of produce, like also Suyar said, sometimes mass communication for various target groups. We're using Gamma app. It's an amazing tool that helps you generate slides, storytelling slides, in a couple of seconds with the right prompt, of course. And if you look at Notebook LM by Google, I mean, what they've done with Gen AI podcasts in two voices, discussing, debating, disagreeing on topics. This is already going to the level where this is not disappointing anymore. This is actually enjoyable. And some podcasts generated by Notebook LM, because we're still in the era where, content creators mention that in their bios, right? That this content piece was generated with Notebook LM. There's still, I can listen to a 13 minutes or 15 minutes podcast done by Gen AI and just listen to the content and hear what they have to say without having that mental barrier of, oh my God, this is, artificial voices. It's not a real conversation. What am I even doing here? What do you think, Morgan?
Well, in using specifically that particular tool, experiences vary, right? But I've been giving it some more complicated topics. And sometimes the result is that I usually have to edit things together. If I'm going to make something that's 30 minutes long or something, because it'll go off on tangents. It once gave me something that was 30 minutes long that was okay, but it's also given me things that are completely the opposite of the source material that I gave it. Like they will sit there and start talking about things, and they will get the facts that I gave them absolutely wrong. Right? Or that the model, right?
That's interesting.
Even though, we're saying it's them, but it's not actually them. It's just an it. Right. This is how we humanize things.
Nice. Absolutely. We have that need to humanize, right?
But that's part of the problem, because if we are getting this information, we're getting these images, we're getting these videos, we have to be very careful that it's not too much automation in the process before we actually know that these things aren't going to say the opposite of what we ask them to say, or they aren't going to give us information that is the opposite of what we wanted or needed, or something that's just not true. We still have to be part of the system, not only as in our business sense, but also as storytellers. We have to be part of that process. And there are instances, like as Coca-Cola learned, where it might be fun to use these things, but how does that really affect the perception of our brand? Are we genuine enough to enable trust? Like Motion, he was going into meetings, he was connecting with his clients with potential clients because he knew them. There was a human connection. He knows what they're going through. If he had sent an email to 300 people that basically maybe even said similar thing, but it had a little bit of an AI ring to it, gone. Trust is gone.
That's right. That's right. Absolutely. We have a couple of minutes left on the panel today. So I just wanted to say, everybody listening in, this is your moment to put your questions in the chat, and we still have, 4 minutes to answer them. And I would really like my guests for today to think about, or to even like tell us the one thing that inspired them today and also made them think different about a certain topic. Maybe a conversation that we had today actually challenged your beliefs from before, or you haven't even thought about it like that, or maybe somebody else's experience from the stories that we shared today open up your thinking into a new direction.
Mara, real quick about your point for the notebook LLM. Does that mean next time you're replacing all of us with AI agents and you're not doing this live anymore?
Mosin, you're on a safe side because I love talking to you people and to hear from your life stories, not from a prompt of some 100 pages that you were given to talk to me about. However, I do have to say that I did use huge, very long qualitative interviews as a prompt to LLM, to Notebook LLM, to generate a conversation about a topic, because we had responses from 300 people on a certain topic, and I wanted to see how this could look like a conversation more than 300 data points. And it was a really cool material that we haven't shared publicly, but we're definitely learning from internally at Tech to the Rescue. We have a question. Irina asks, what are you looking forward to in the AI-powered storytelling context?
Oh, maybe I can start with that. So two things here. One, whatever that you are selling to your customers, AI can help you find more stories to that, right? It can find more ways to deliver the same stories, right? That can be more appropriate to the local context and more appropriate to the local community and the person that you're selling. That's one part. Second part is it can help you find implications of that also. You might be missing out something in your story, right? That you are not sure about, that you are not aware about. Maybe you are meeting to somebody who is very new with your product, your services, or from like a new community altogether. With the help of your story and with the help of the context itself, it can help you find what can go wrong. Okay. So we are now in a state of like chain of thoughts AI models, right? That can do the reasoning for you, right? That is something that the storytellers should take advantage of, to reason with your own story and what can be the implications of my story. I believe that is something that every storyteller should look into.
Yeah. That sounds great. Also, I really like what you said about the cultural element. I can totally imagine telling ChatGPT that, he's a cultural scientist, right? An anthropologist. And this is the story this is the campaign that I'm planning for a certain geography. Give me feedback, tell me what is risky around here, and help me find better ways to tell that story for the certain audience. So these are very, very practical examples how this can really work. Yeah. And honestly, I would love to hear that, thought that has changed in your mind over the last of the 1 hour, but we're out of time. So I have another idea. I would like everybody on this call to find Morgan, Suyash, and Mosin on LinkedIn. where I really want to see that thought and that reflection that they have after this conversation. And this is the moment for you to connect with them, find them, start conversation with them. I'm also happy that Mohsin and Suyash are geographically so close, so they can actually meet in real life and start the collaboration. It was a real pleasure having this conversation with all of you. Thank you so much for being with me today.
The
Thank
pleasure
you.
was all ours. Thank you so much for having us, Mara.
Thank you so much for having us, Mara.
Thanks for sharing your stories and talking to me about AI in storytelling. I'm wishing you all